I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. Where are our prophets now? Where are those messages God chooses to communicate divine revelation through? In the past, the Creator has sent prophets like Abraham, Siddhartha, Jesus, Muhammad, and many more. Maybe our higher power has switched tactics since we reinterpret God's words as soon as the Creator's prophets leave us. Could it be that Spirit talks to each one of us individually and we haven't learned to listen? On Words of the Prophets, our modern prophets show us how to find the internal prophet that is the I Am, and we discuss the application of spiritual principles in all aspects of our lives. Love and light, everybody. I'm Reverend Phil, and I'm your host for Words of the Prophets. And today we have a panel. We're going to tell you all about this, but let me introduce them individually first. To my immediate right is Jennifer Ferguson, who is a spirit guide. Right next to her is Blue Turtle, who is a intuitive counselor and teacher. And at the far end is Althea Gray, who is a human potential healer. Now, you may think that's interesting titles. It's going to get more interesting. Hang with us. Today's prophetic topic is a closer walk with God. And this phrase can be found in the answer to question number 7 in Edgar Casey's reading number 262-20. And this was given on June 5th, 1932. Basically, the 262 readings were the Search for God group. Anybody who's familiar with Casey and what he does, he did a series of readings from a group of people who came to him and said, how do we do what you do? And there were 22, 23 lessons, something like that, over 2 books, and they took them 11 years for the initial group to master each of these lessons. So this was one of those readings. So the reading, the answer goes as follows. That does not indicate that every individual should make of themselves a psychic channel that may be used to their own destruction, for as has been given, there be many things hard to be understood that many rest with to their own destruction. But that which gives more understanding of the relationships of self with the creative forces of a universal experience, rather than an individual, makes for a closer walk with God, that from which the essence of life itself has its emanation. So what we're going to talk about here is, if I had to have a catchphrase, and we'll define that catchphrase, is psychic abilities. But psychic abilities is, to me, like the word talent. It can manifest in a variety of different ways, and we're just going to look at 3 individuals, their manifestations of their gifts, how they came about, recognizing they had them, how they've worked with them, developed them, and so forth. And we're not going to just introduce everybody and let them do their own introductions for like we normally do. What we're going to do is just start off with a topic, and we're going to start off with some definitions. So the first definition is psychic. Anybody want to take a crack at that one? Somebody's got to talk, or I'll keep talking.
Yes, well, psychic. I would like to say that when people refer to the word psychic, it's someone who is able to tap that field which is. And I call it the matrix. Some people call it a morphogenic field. Rupert Sheldrake called it that. But it's a field that is in active creation. And so the intuitive has the frequency, enough frequency to be able to tap into that field. And that field is always the truth. It always will reflect back to you all that is and the truth. So
we're talking about quantum physics, defining a connectivity for all of us. Mm-hmm. We're talking about what Casey used to refer to as the Akashic Records.
That's it. Yes.
That some of the religions refer to as the Book of Life. So we're all connected.
Yes.
So each one of you manifests this connection slightly differently. And there are infinite more manifestations than just what we're going to be talking about here. So you talked about 2 of them. You talked about psychic, you talked about intuitive. We have things like mediums, channels, empaths, do we need to really define all of them, or we're just giving examples? Anybody?
Well, it's almost like people feel and sense and know who are open to this or feel that connection in different ways. And so it's sensing, it's very much what is beyond our five senses and what is known as that sixth sense.
Okay. So one of the things that pops into mind is, I talk about I use the phrase the volume being turned up. That we come in here with a karmic path. And in order to meet ourselves in that path, whatever we need is given to us at whatever level we need it at, and whatever manifestation we need it at. But that does not mean that somebody who doesn't have that on their path can't do that. How would we go about developing this? Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. How did each one of you, and when did each one of you figure out you had some kind of gift?
Well, I think everyone, people call it different things. They call it the gut feeling about something. A gut feeling is really your intuitive sense giving you guidance. We can certainly override that, but most people have some kind of gut reaction to a situation or person, and that is their intuitive sense. For me, as a child, I had some experiences, but as a child, I didn't really recognize what those were. It wasn't really until I was in my 20s that things started happening. I started questioning, and I was a science major in college, and so it was very disturbing to me to meet that piece. And so once I started having experiences as a 20-something, I started doing the research, because that's what scientists do. They do research. So I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of reading about all kinds of people that have all kinds of gifts. And I began to meditate and to pray and to just try to get centered. And I started getting more and more information, and things just sort of started flowing, I guess you could say. And so that's really where I started. It was a piece, something that happened, and then I just began to explore it because I was curious.
Did you ever question your sanity or any of that stuff?
All the time.
In the beginning?
All the time, still occasionally.
Okay.
But yeah, of course. But after so many of being proven that this is real and this is true and this is not something that I've invented in my mind, and then recent scientific research backing up a lot of what's already been said in the spiritual world for a long time, I had less and less questioning of my sanity.
What was interesting for me growing up is that I was born into this intuitive lineage. And how I found out about this, I would spend much time at my maternal grandparents. And my grandfather, who was Serbian and Croatian, he worked for the Bethlehem Steel. And so he would go to sleep early, get up early, in order his whole family worked there. And what was interesting is that at night, going upstairs on the second floor past the bathroom and through the grate from the kitchen up into his bedroom, he would be speaking. And we'd hear him whispering and speaking. And over time, our family got to understand that my grandfather was speaking to the spirits and the dead and working to break what he felt was the family curse with difficult challenges in the family, accidents, unusual accidents, and tragic deaths. And so in that way, I came into this, understanding that there was something, very unique and special going on here. It wasn't talked about. He never talked about it, but never poo-pooed this. And then as I was growing up, so there was this openness. And then very naturally, when I was working at the naval base in South Philly in the early mid-1980s. I walked one day into the file room, and I was beginning to pick up like a sponge, messages and vibrations from the environment, and I thought the file clerk was speaking to me. And I turned there, and it was something about marriage just came, and I get much information through my mind's eye here that was developing. And I turned around, and he was just concentrated on that file. And I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy. This is unusual. This was scary for me. And with that, and so over time, I started gaining more and more impressions because I was open to it, and then meeting people and circumstances, and more impressions would come. And it was interesting over time, and I felt, oh my gosh, something's happening here. It wasn't talked about early in my family, but then more and more impressions, and then I felt that ever increasing and deepening connection with spirit, what God, goddess, all that is spirit energy, and just it was a surrender over time, and realizing, yes, in deepening this relationship, I would grow and evolve more in this way, and realizing that great interconnectedness.
Althea.
Yes, well, I have to say that I've always lived in two worlds. I've never known a disconnection from spirit. And as a young child, and I would say back as early as 3 years old, I lived in two worlds. And I was very aware of the angelic world, the spirit world, and then the functional world that we live in. So as a child, it was difficult because I could see what was wrong in a situation, or sit in front of people, and people would say one thing, but I would feel something else. And this was pervasive. So I would say, really, it's only now, maybe in the last 15 years, that I'm coming into my own. But as a woman living on this planet Earth, I felt I kind of coexisted with people, but I lived in a world that I was very directed by spirit. My grandmother was a curandera from Nicaragua, so I inherited this capacity. I came into that lineage so that I could manifest certain things. And my first guidance was at 17. I went to India and met the mother of Sri Aurobindo's ashram. I was given private darshan, and everyone thought, well, who's this kid? And I didn't even know what an ashram was, but the trip was paid for. And my family let me go there, even though I was never allowed to go out on a date. So my whole life, I have to say, I have been gifted and guided all along the way. And because I listen and I follow, one thing leads to another. And my role as a healer happened really, it started in the early 90s, where a curandera from Mexico said if I didn't do this work, everything in my life would dissolve. And I had a pretty nice life. And I thought, I don't want people depending on me. I like studying spirituality. I like experiencing my spirit world. And but it did happen. Everything dissolved. And I was on the verge of losing everything in the mundane world. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And literally within a month, this doctor from Sri Lanka experienced a session with me. And he said, I'd like you to work in my clinic. And I went to Sri Lanka. And I didn't know what I was capable of. And many of us don't know until we're put in a position to really push it. We're always afraid of our own light. And I worked in that clinic. I treated heads of state. I was even then given my own clinic. And many times I would say, like, oh my God, I didn't know I could do that. So it was way the spirit was letting me know, this is who you are. This is what you have to do.
Being guided without being overwhelmed. Getting it in
Exactly.
pieces.
That's right. All along the way, we are, I'm sure all of you here can attest to that. Those of us who do this work, we're guided a lot.
I want to do a little demonstration, but before we do that, let's, all of you, define healing. You use the term healing.
Okay, I'm going to define it for you.
Okay.
Healing is basically we have a physical manifestation, and then we have many subtle fields that connect us to not only this world, but to many other worlds. And when those subtle bodies move out of alignment, then and that can happen through our thoughts, how we feel about life, what we eat, consumption, so on. What happens, we move out of balance, and then the body starts to, the body always manifests the imbalance in the subtle world. So we have to bring the frequencies back into balance, and when that happens, healing happens. And it's a reconnection also to spirit. So when the human being loses its connection to spirit, it starts to become ill.
Well, that becomes almost the definition of the shaman and the shamanic journey.
There you go.
You
Yes.
want to add on to that healing definition?
Yes, very much, because yes, and I feel, each person, and they may not be so conscious of it, but when you're doing this work in life and you surrender to spirit, it's as if each of us must meet, our challenges. We go through the darkness, that dark night of the soul. Many of us discover our gifts, and opportunities open because of that, and it can be the most difficult things like near-death experiences, but it's coming through that darkness and connecting to the light and to our source.
So we have to heal first before we become healers.
Oh, definitely. And
You're challenged.
yes.
Definitely.
We're all, wounded healers. We have to go through these particular experiences that are unique to ourselves, and then the people come who understand in some way. We can assist them and guide them as instruments of spirit, because we have gone through that experience, and they may be going through similar experiences.
There's always a rite of initiation. All healers, all of us who are given this gift to work with people on this planet, we are given these challenges that we have to go through to awaken ourselves and to make sure that we're committed.
And just to add a little bit about healing, what Althea said about the manifestation of imbalances in the various energy fields. They will sometimes, imbalance appears in an energy field before it actually manifests in the physical body. So sometimes when I'm doing my work, I'll see something that's out of balance before it actually affects the person on the physical realm. So I may say, I see you're having issues with your heart. Well, and the person will say, oh no, nothing's wrong with my heart. Well, okay, well maybe you need to put your awareness there, because that's where there's something going on there, and it's apparent that the vibrations are not in balance.
It's interesting. You all have slightly different title identifications.
Yes, but we do similar things.
Exactly. That's part of this point. I mean, and the other part, we'll get back into again, is that this is not, we talked about it off camera before we started, that 250 years ago, you all would have been burnt at the stake. Or 500 years ago, they would have stoned you in the town square.
Right.
And I don't even want to talk about what would have happened before that. This is all, that topic, a closer walk with God. It doesn't mean, from my perspective, that we're special. It means that we have gifts that are needed at this point, and we're here to manifest those gifts and do the service that we've set up for ourselves.
Yes, and we're open to grow in touch with that.
Yes.
That's the key thing. And we make that agreement, it's a contract with spirit, and so we take that responsibility.
So we've got a couple of people in the audience who are going to, this is not rehearsed, you could, trust me. They're going to come up, sit in the chair here. They're going to choose whichever one of the three individuals here to ask the question to. And, hey, Ted, thank you. And ask whatever questions. There's absolutely no rehearsal here whatsoever with regard to the question, the answers. Mm-hmm. Ted is just going to spontaneously choose. And okay, so let's go for it, sir.
Okay, so I guess I'll choose Blue Turtle. And I'm an artist, and seems like I have come up through a great interest in mechanical things, and so it's sort of like I don't want to say anything to anybody about how mechanics play in my art, because I sort of have a conflict between talking about myself as an artist and having this strong mechanical aptitude. And I think of Leonardo da Vinci, and I kind of wonder if I had any connection to him, or just about some of these ideas of whether I've had past lives of working with art and mechanics.
Yes, even as you're speaking about this, Ted, what I'm sensing is that, and I'm seeing, it's almost like multiple dimensions and lifetimes in the past where you are working, and it's interesting to see it. It's like just a number of lifetimes, and you're working on these mechanisms. And what that does for you, and I get the sense it still does, is brings you a great sense of peace and comfort. And there's such joy in that for you. And as you mentioned Da Vinci, what I'm sensing is in that circle that you were probably an assistant and working very carefully with the paints, I get a sense, and the colors especially. But it all brings you, it's almost like internally, it brings you such insight and connection to the divine and to spirit. So there's great comfort. I'm sensing just in your being as you ask this question, the great comfort and joy that you feel.
You mean the feel in putting those two aspects together, or?
Well, just in each of those components, as you ask, and as the information came from Spirit, as I'm working now as an instrument of Spirit here, it's like this fulfills you, the satisfaction, the fulfillment, the great comfort. And that's why, it's like in this lifetime you're compelled. It's like you've got to create. It comes from that. It's so much a deep
Well, the
part
underlying creativity, I think, is probably the most powerful element of my being,
Yeah, it's like you've got to do it. You're compelled, and that's your gift.
Can you speak more about this mechanical artistic thing?
Oh well, you just
sort of
it's like you just know how to bring that together. It's like that precision. You love. It's like the detail, the precision, that preciseness, and you just, it's like you're there. You're one with that.
Putting that together.
Mm-hmm.
Can we hold you there for a second? Jennifer, Althea.
I absolutely.
You got either one of you want to jump in? And
yeah, can I jump in there?
I can feel that.
I can feel it. Before you actually, as you were describing the mechanical and the spiritual, the first thing that came into my mind was Leonardo da Vinci, and that you were an apprentice of his at one time, And during that particular time, all artists, artisans, and divine creators were so connected to spirit, and they weren't distracted by all the mechanizations of life. People were, they just kind of lived, worked, ate, built, but these special, unique people were very connected to bringing down spirit. And so you were his apprentice. That's what I got. And the forms that you create are actually forms in the universe, because you have these very complex weavings that you do and color combinations, which also carry frequency. So they're actually either can bring down, create a kind of machine, so to speak, to anchor down thoughts, higher level thoughts onto this earth, healing. It's a part of expansion of consciousness on the planet. So you may think, oh, I'm just creating these things, but they have quite an impact on people. And many of these things serve in public places, impacting people without them really being aware of it. And
Somewhat unconsciously, you mean?
And you do this.
So my impression was I saw a lot of clocks and watches.
Huh.
So I think that you were a clockmaker or a watchmaker during that time, somewhere in that time period. And the intricacies of the little gears and all of that is fascinating, and how each piece makes the whole work. And so I think that you bring that to your art, but I definitely see watches and clocks.
Isn't that funny? When I was a kid, I used to make little, they didn't work, they didn't function, but these little, I was fascinated with those clocks that you pull the chains, and I'd make these little cardboard clocks. I made dozens of them that had these things, weights on them, just when I was like 3 or 4 or something, before I really understood how they worked.
So let me ask you, you've now gotten a reading from 3 individuals, similar and different. My own experience is that we have a truth identifier. We know when we're hearing truth and when we know when we're not. How did you resonate with what you heard?
I just felt each one had something to offer to me that was a little different, and it all rang.
Okay, good. Let's move on to Mona. Well,
Thank you.
Mona's getting set.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Question, each one of you separately, individually. Explain the process as best as you can that generated that reading.
For
You
me,
started, so
yes,
why don't you
start?
For me, I'm becoming more aware as I'm teaching workshops and working, with people in evolving ways as Spirit is guiding me. And what comes, I move into this very quiet place now, and my crown chakra opens. This opens. My third eye, I see and receive information through here, and sense and feel too. So I become very unified in my own field, and it's as if my human part, Michael, moves back, and I become this clear conduit and channel of spirit, an instrument of spirit, so I can't get in the way. If I would interfere, that would be distortion, and that would be the end of the work. So I move back and allow this, and I trust it. It took me 9 years of apprenticeship with Spirit, and particularly with the intuitive tarot for family and friends and co-workers who were open to it, and just allowing it to build that confidence and realizing the danger and responsibility. So with that, I move into that unified space where now I've gone 25 years now after that 9-year apprenticeship, and yes, I trust it, I can't interfere with it, and I allow it, and then the people, as you were saying, Reverend Phil, it resonates, it rings, the person knows.
Okay, Althea.
And I'm sort of like Michael, there's a part of me that's me, Althea, stays quiet. And then there's something else that's happening. And it's, for me, I get a lot of pictures. And I allow the information to kind of flow through. And I get words, and like Leonardo da Vinci, just as you were speaking, and it just came in. So it is kind of allowing yourself, the ego, to step back a little bit so that spirit can work with you.
Jennifer.
It's the still small voice. So a lot of times when I'm doing a reading for someone, one of the first things, that comes through is that we always have spirit with us, and that most people don't take the time in their everyday life to listen to the still small voice, which is always present, but we tend to push it away because it's inconvenient, or that's not what we want to hear, or we're not sure. So again, I just get words, sometimes pictures, sometimes music. It just depends on what it is. But I was getting, oh, he's a watchmaker. Oh, he, I mean, it's just coming in.
Okay. Okay, Mona, you're on the hot seat. Go for it.
Okay. So do I pick somebody, or are
Yes.
they all going to answer?
No, pick somebody to
Okay.
start with.
Well, I'll pick Althea, and let's see where that goes. I feel like I have a big question now, because I've been doing the same work for about 8 years. And I always believed that this was my calling. And space has presented itself to me where I have a big space in front of me, like a hiatus or a sabbatical or something. And I'm not sure if the work that I have been doing is my calling, is my dharma, or if it has been the result of a question that led me to do that work to get it answered. I can be more specific if you need to, but if
Yes,
I
if
don't.
you could.
Okay. I've been working with childbirth for about the last 8 years. I was very moved by my own births. And then I was just pulled, and I began working with birth about 8 years ago. A few weeks ago, I attended a birth that I felt like I had watched my own birth. And after that happened, I wondered if all the work that I had done was because I had questions. I had unresolved. I needed to see it. And then when I saw that birth, I knew that that was what had happened with me. So now, that was almost the last birth that I did. So then the space opened up, and I'm asking myself, did I pick that line of work to get there, to be able to answer and resolve that? Or is it, I don't want to say what I should do, but is it my calling? I don't know what is.
Well, it feels like it's a stepping stone for you. And those who are blessed, and I do truly feel this, who are blessed to hold that soul that comes into the world, it's truly a privilege for both, that someone has contracted to have you assist in their birth. And I've always been amazed at, in doing rebirthing, how many people remember specifically even how cold they felt or what the room was like, that infants are so wired and that they can actually feel their first experience when they come into this world. It surprises me, even what their mothers were thinking. It's incredible what an infant, in fact, people need to take more care of, in terms of how babies enter this world, so that they're not dealing with trauma as they come in. So it feels like, for me with you, that this space that's being created is for you to bring more awareness around this, and even extending it to how to assist mothers and how to care for a child when they come into this world. How important it is to create that envelope for them so that they can not have to spend half of their life fixing something, but they can actually start running early. And I feel that you're going to be guided more and more into creating these spaces for women, for women to be better mothers. It seems like it's going to, have an extension, and you've created the space for it to happen. So that's my sense of it.
Anybody got something they want to add?
When you asked the question, the answer that I got was that the purpose has been fulfilled and you may move forward. So I feel like that whatever door has been opened, that you should walk through, and that your experience with what you've been doing with your life up until this point has been really, it was kind of the fulfillment, it came to fruition with what you saw recently, and that piece has now been fulfilled and you may move on, but that this will influence whatever it is that you're going to do next. Mm-hmm. And I love seeing you because your guides are always there, and so it's nice and for them to be there, but they are very encouraging and saying that it's okay to move forward. Yeah.
Yes, and the impression I got in continuing what Althea and Jennifer have mentioned, Mona, is that I'm seeing you through my mind's eye. You are in the womb yourself now, and that's why, and you've completed something, and you're being prepared for something new when you're ready, when you're comfortable, and it's okay for you to take the best care of yourself and be in the womb of the mother, the sacred feminine energy. And so it's for you, as you have served now in this particular capacity, it's for you now to be nourished in the womb of the mother. And when you're ready, you'll take flight and take wing.
So I'll ask you the same question. How did what you heard resonate?
All of it resonated. I will tell you that before I came up here, I asked my guides, as Jennifer saw, to attend me through them. So it wasn't that I sat here and said, "Oh, what do you think?" I asked in my own way for them to bring to me what I needed to hear from my guides. So I guess in a way I participated, which I do always. If I ask for something, I participate in the calling and the setting the intention. It was very beautiful. I noticed I had a very different feeling when each of them spoke. It wasn't so much the words, but there was a love that came through. And the words that they each chose spoke to some aspect of my asking, and I loved that. I wish we could always have a panel of people and let it come through, because it felt so beautiful, and each of them had a lovely, unique way of expressing an aspect of the answer that I asked for, and I thank you each, and I thank my guides for.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'm going to do the complete opposite. I have no questions. I have no intention. Read for me.
Okay.
Don't all jump in at once.
You're opening your heart more and more, and it's wonderful because in your own integration and strength and balance, what's important for you, and I get the sense of this integration of the opposites and the complements, and you're very much in this work, very courageous, very strong, in what you're doing and how you're living and initiating and willing to take those leaps and risks. Yet, however, you're very much embraced, and it's wonderful to see, because what comes into my work too is the healing aspects of color. And that in your blue here, for example, I get the strong sense of you being embraced and guided and supporting the mother energy, the sacred feminine energy. And so that's very powerful too. So you move so courageously and strongly in the world, and yet you carry that grace, that caring, that kindness and gentleness also of the mother and the sacred feminine energy.
Okay, anybody else?
And I think you're going to become a bit of a rebel. I think that the part
Become?
a bit of a rebel. I think that you're going to feel more and more strongly guided to present forward-thinking ideas and pushing consciousness on the planet, dropping those seeds, and I think you're going to feel it very strongly. You're going to really feel like that, like a messenger, a strong messenger. Even more than you've been a messenger, yes, but even more so.
What came to me was, you and I have done a couple of sessions together with other people in the healing aspect, and it's really important that you continue to move through your hesitation with the healing that you are very capable of, with helping other people to heal, using your gifts to help people heal, whether it's Reiki or whatever. That hesitation is from that life where you were persecuted as a healer. And so you have very powerful gifts, but moving through that will eliminate that piece from that life where you were like, you just said, I'm not doing that anymore. Expand your ability to help people.
Okay. Let's jump to something completely different here. Do any of you feel the need, the necessity, when you're doing readings, to consciously protect yourself or not? And if you do, how do you go about doing that?
That was protecting your own energy is really important, and myself being fairly new to this practice, I learned the hard way a number of times when one is not protected, when they're working with someone else's energy, whether it be we're in the room together, we're not in the room together, it doesn't really matter. If you don't protect yourself in a proper way, then you become you can pick up other people's illnesses, energetic illnesses. You can pick up energy that is not positive. It's very important when you're working with spirit that you are protected, and so you can just ask for protection. And I just always ask for protection. I ask for protection in the morning, I ask for protection at night, before I work on someone. I just ask for protection from the higher realms, and that seems to do the trick. Although there's been a few times when I wasn't aware of other people's ability to drain energy, and so I would go into a place and I would leave the place and be completely drained of my energy. And that happened a few times, and it's kind of like, oh, okay, this is happening. And then I learned how to also protect myself from that, not just directly working on someone, but just being in a place that has a lot of energetic manifestations.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, I mean, I do. When I start all my sessions, I call in the guides and angels and medicine animals of that person to come in and assist, and I also call in my own guides, angels, and teachers to create a field of safe protection, because there is a lot going on in the unseen world, and I created actually a whole course on how to clear out negative things in the unseen world that is constantly impacting your environment, the person. And so this awareness of protection is important, not only to the healer, but to in the public. There's always this invasion. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Something you want to add?
Yes, for this sacred work that we do, and whether it's working individually with people, in workshops, moving into ritual clearing work where the person gives permission, they're ready to give up something that is no longer healthy or serving them. It's really calling upon the healing energies. I work with the power animals, and so making sure, and I'm so grateful for my team that has gathered through the years as I've deepened a relationship with Spirit in order to be safe and to do this work. So you're always working to set up that sanctuary, protective space as an instrument of Spirit to make sure that people you're working with and you know, are protected.
Before we go forward, we'll get starting to run down on time. I know both of you have announcements to make. You have anything you want to? No. Okay. You want to start?
Yes. I am offering a workshop at the ARC bookstore this coming Sunday, August 18th, Introduction to the Intuitive Tarot. And if anyone is interested in that, they may contact me about that workshop this Sunday. And then I also have the privilege, my 15th message in Sedona Journal of Emergence from Mother of Light has been published in this August issue.
Okay. Althea, you have something you want
Yes.
to do?
In December of this year, of last year, I should say, I received guidance to take people to Mount Shasta and to Iona, Scotland. And the Mount Shasta project will be September 18th through the 22nd. I'm taking those who are called, and there'll be training and guidance there for those who come to receive messages for the planet from those beings who are, we call extraterrestrials, interterrestrials, and many guides, many beings there who will be assisting and helping those who are attending to give messages for the whole planet. So it's a very important project. It's called the Mount Shasta Project. And in fact, Michael will be there. He will be assisting people and learning how to open up and be good channels. We have people there who are going to teach how to dowse and find the right energetic spots for the information. The whole project, I have the most remarkable people who've come together to assist those who are called who will be there to channel these messages for the planet.
Thank you. And I'll just make a quick announcement here. You've heard this all before if you've ever watched this show. It hasn't changed in over 4 years. This is public access television. You are the public. Want to hear from you. Are there things that you'd like us to cover? Let me know what they are. If there are a show you think you might want to do with me, contact me. I'd love to have you on. Also, just to throw out, I do spiritual counseling. I work strictly on a donation basis. So if there's something that I've said that resonates with you and you think might be able to help you, reach out to me. We'll be happy to see what we can do. Okay, that's the quickest announcement I've ever made. I've got so many questions and so little time. First question. Each of you has talked in some shape or form about spirit guides, angels, higher selves, all these different terms. If I had to label myself, I would call myself a purist. You know where this is going. Why do I need intermediaries if I am one with the divine?
Well, you have interference, don't you? The interference of ego, interference of how you grew up, interference of past lives. You have a lot of things interfering with you connecting completely and fully to your divine codes, because you have the codes within you to be perfect at all times. But we're clouded. We get clouded. And so we are so fortunate. We have wonderful beings, whether they come from the angelic realm or the stellar places, that assist you, that have made a contract with you, said, I will help you do your job here on this planet Earth.
I mean, I hear that, and I don't deny that. I had a self-realized individual make the arrangements for me to have a spirit master. And I can pinpoint the shift in me when that happened. I guess what I'm asking is, I mean, you were talking about protection, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had issues in the past, way in the past, with taking on the energies like you were talking about.
Well, can I just interject really quickly?
Go for it.
Just for kind of a layperson idea, if you've ever walked into a room and just got a really bad feeling, or been in a place where you just felt really good in that place, in that space, around those people, or whatever it is, and you felt good, and there was really no explanation for it. You just that's what we call good energy and not so good energy. You can be in a place or just be at the grocery store, and all of a sudden you just get a feeling of dread or something. There's energy all around us. We just, in our physicalness, have difficulty, most people, identifying what's going on.
To me, there's a difference between identifying the energies around and actually allowing them to impact us. And so that's my question again. I mean, is there a level of knowing that we don't have to go through the ritual of, I need this protection, we just know we're protected?
Oh, yes. I mean, all of us here, I mean, I'm sure, we know we're protected. We don't necessarily go through a ritual.
Well, I mean, it's even asking for the protection.
But it is so important to ask. I feel as I've grown deeper in this work and the consciousness, because this work is all about working with the subtle energy. And that's what I've learned. It's like something out of alignment, something moving into realignment. And as I've worked with spirit as an instrument, it's having that refinement. And that's why, you know, homeopathics and all these essential oils, you don't have to get these like massive bombarded, you know, doses of things, but it's about, you know, it's the subtle shifts. And so we become more sensitive and aware as any of us also deepen in relationship with spirit and surrender. So when you do that, it's almost like you're part of that light of God, Goddess. And with that, and if we are wanting to be with that, choosing that, that also protects us.
Okay. We got about 4 minutes left. I got another question I want to throw out there. Somebody watching the show now is moved to contact one of you to ask a question. Are there right questions to ask, wrong questions to ask? Is any question a good question? How would you guide them to guide themselves to ask the questions that they need to?
Well, I think that, you know, that comes from within. I mean, you're compelled. And all questions are good questions, because whatever comes up for you is something that you need at that time, to help you resolve something or go to the next level. So I think it looks like we're all in agreement about that. There's no right or wrong questions.
So as long as they feel that intuitive sense, that kind of deep level gut feeling to ask that question, they should ask it.
Yes, from their soul, from their heart, you know, that it resonates. It's like they're compelled, you know, they feel that passion.
Should they be asking questions only about themselves, or should they be asking questions about others who may or may not be in their life at that moment?
Whatever, it's like, you know, whatever is appropriate, you know, for them to ask in their search, you know, that genuine search that they feel and know, you know, in their being and their heart.
I mean, all roads lead back to the individual at some point. So, first of all, you triggered my teacher response, which is there's never a bad question. But all roads lead back. So if you have a question about a relationship, or you have a question about a job, or all of those things are essentially tied back to the individual and the individual soul and the path and the journey. So, you know, even if you start off at, you know, this jumping point, it'll eventually lead back to the greater issues which have to do with self.
Okay, should I ask the question, can one of you give me the next winning lottery ticket numbers? I mean, is that a legitimate question somebody should be asking?
It never seems to work that way. But I have to say this, that all of us here respect, we do not, if someone is requesting that I manipulate something in terms of, I want that person to love me, what can you do? I don't, as a healer, like manipulating or invading someone else's space. I think then you're verging on witchcraft and that kind of thing. So there's an honoring, there's always a respect of what's being asked, and if it's about manipulating something or manipulating another person, then I don't.
We've got about a minute and a half. Let me try this quick. So if I ask for a healing, and it's not my karmic path to be healed, but to actually go through the whole suffering process, then that's something that you'd
Do you
back
believe
off
that?
of. Do I believe what?
That you should suffer?
I believe that some of us come in karmically to have those experiences, yes.
Well, the thing is, yes, we may have something that appears to be uncomfortable, but it's always leading you to something that's better than
Yes.
where
Yeah,
you
there
are.
will be a blessing. You know, if there's the suffering in that darkness, that pain, there is the blessing and the learning which occurs to transform.
Yeah.
It's always the transcendence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I thank all of you. We are almost done. I want to thank you all for tuning in. Our topic, A Closer Walk with God. You don't have to be sitting here on this panel to have that experience. Each and every one of you have the ability to go inside and meet that place where the divine presence is and make that manifest in your lives. So until next show, thank you all for tuning in. Walk in love and light. Blessings to you all. I'm Reverend Phil, and I've been your host for Words of the Prophets. Thank you for tuning in. Please join me again next week, same time, same channel, for more Words of the Prophets.